in the sleepy town of Willow Creek, surrounded by whispering pines and rolling mist, people lived simply. Doors were left unlocked. Faces were familiar. Secrets didn't survive long. But there was one mystery that had never quite been put to rest: the disappearance of Evelyn Hart. Evelyn was known by everyone. She had a way of making people feel seen, heard, important. Her artwork, vivid, emotional portrayals of nature and people, lined the walls of the local library, cafe, even the mayor's office. To the outside world, her life with her husband Thomas Hart was perfect. But perfection has a way of cracking under silence. Thomas was a man of few words, a skilled carpenter with hands like sandpaper and eyes that always seemed to be hiding something. He built furniture the way some men built cathedrals, precise, proud, and unforgiving. To neighbors, he was respectable if distant. But to those who got too close, there was a quiet, simmering tension that hovered just beneath his calm. Before we begin, like this video and comment where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more intriguing stories. Now let's begin. It was a rainy October night, 10 years ago, when Evelyn vanished. The last confirmed sighting of her was at the town's Harvest Festival. She'd been laughing, drinking cider, dancing barefoot under string lights. Then she was gone. Thomas said she left after an argument, that she packed a bag and stormed out. But Evelyn's sister, Claire, insisted Evelyn would never disappear without telling her. Detective Clara Monroe was assigned to the case. A woman in her 40s with sharp instincts and a voice like dry leaves, Clara had seen enough small-town tragedies to recognize when something didn't sit right. She searched Evelyn and Thomas's home, questioning Thomas repeatedly. His answers were always the same: Evelyn left. She was impulsive. Maybe she wanted to be free. No signs of a struggle, no body, no credit card use. Clara found a few smudges of blood on the floorboards in the laundry room. Thomas said it was from a woodworking accident. There was never enough evidence to charge him. And so, after months of searching, the case went cold. Thomas lived on, alone in that cottage, more reclusive than ever. He stopped attending church, stopped speaking to neighbors. When asked, he would just say, "Some people aren't meant to stay." But Evelyn's memory never faded. Her paintings remained. Her sister never stopped searching. And every year, on the anniversary of her disappearance, someone left a single white rose on her doorstep. Then, on a crisp autumn evening, just as the sun began to bleed behind the hills, there was a knock at Thomas Hart's door. He opened it, and there she stood, a woman, thin, pale, trembling, her hair longer, darker, her eyes sunken, but unmistakable. "Thomas," she said, "it's me." He didn't speak, didn't move. His knuckles whitened against the doorframe. "I got away," she whispered. "They said you were dead." And then she collapsed. The paramedics came fast. Evelyn was rushed to Willow Creek Medical Center, barely conscious, her pulse weak. News spread like wildfire. By morning, the entire town buzzed with questions. Where had she been? Who had taken her? What had really happened that night 10 years ago? Detective Clara Monroe was called out of semi-retirement. She stood at the hospital window, watching the rain trace lines down the glass. Evelyn had been sedated, resting, doctors said. Her condition was stable, but her mind fragile. Thomas, meanwhile, sat in an interrogation room at the station, his hands cuffed, not because he was charged, but because no one could be sure what had just happened. Was this woman really Evelyn? DNA would confirm it soon enough. But Clara's gut didn't need science. "I want to talk to her," Thomas said. "She's my wife." Clara tilted her head. "You sure about that?" He didn't answer. At the hospital, Claire burst into Evelyn's room the moment she was allowed in. Her eyes brimmed with tears. "Evie," Evelyn's lids fluttered. She stared at her sister a long time before whispering, "They said you were gone. They said you died." Claire clasped her hand. "No, sweetie. You were the one missing." I didn't know. They told me it was over. That Thomas was gone." "Who told you?" Clara asked gently, stepping closer. Evelyn turned toward her, eyes wide with memory. The man in the white coat, and the woman with the broken voice. "They took me down the stairs. Said I'd been sick. that I imagined everything. But I didn't. I know what Thomas did. Clara's breath caught. What did Thomas do, Evelyn? But Evelyn was already slipping back into unconsciousness. That night, Clara dug into every record, every missing persons report, every psychiatric hospital within 300 miles. There were no admissions under Evelyn's name. No Jane Does matching her description. It was as if she had been swallowed by the earth. And now, somehow, she had crawled back out. Across town, Thomas sat silently in his cell. He hadn't asked for a lawyer. He hadn't made a call. When Detective Monroe finally confronted him with Evelyn's words, he looked her square in the face and said, "She's lying." The night after Evelyn Hart's miraculous reappearance, Willow Creek did not sleep. Detective Clara Monroe sat alone in her dimly lit office, a single desk lamp casting long shadows across the room. The tape recorder before her hissed gently, replaying Evelyn's last words before slipping into unconsciousness. "There's another woman, in the basement still there." Clara had heard hundreds of confessions in her career, some frantic, others calculated, but something about Evelyn's voice chilled her. Not hysteria, not confusion, just certainty. The Hart property had already been searched a decade ago. No signs of another woman, no basement that wasn't accounted for. Still, Clara knew how houses in small towns hid secrets, false walls, root cellars, boarded-up stairwells. She had to see it for herself. By sunrise, Clara and Officer Nolan were outside the Hart cottage. The woods around the house breathed mist, the air damp with the scent of earth and moss. Thomas, still in holding, wouldn't be returning anytime soon. They entered the house with a search warrant and an old blueprint in hand. The main floor creaked with each step. Dust lay thick over everything, and Evelyn's art had long been removed, replaced by wooden sculptures, rough and eerie. Clara trailed her hand along the walls. The blueprint showed 3 rooms and a crawl space. But Clara's instincts told her something was off. The crawl space on paper didn't match the actual dimensions. "Start measuring," she told Nolan. It took them less than an hour to discover the false wall behind the laundry room shelves, hidden by old paint cans and storage boxes. It was almost invisible. Behind it, stairs, wooden, steep, leading down into silence. They descended slowly, flashlights in hand. The air grew colder. At the bottom was a narrow hallway, concrete walls, old pipes exposed along the ceiling. And then a door. Clara's hand trembled slightly as she turned the knob. The room inside was bare but unmistakably lived in. A mattress on the floor, a small table with a water jug, a single light bulb dangling overhead, and on the far wall a mirror, one-way glass. Observation. "It's like a holding cell," Nolan whispered. "No," Clara said. "It's a prison." They found no one else. No second woman. But something was clear. Someone had been kept there. Back at the hospital, Evelyn woke up screaming. Claire clutched her hand while nurses rushed in. "I saw her," Evelyn cried. She was still down there. "Evelyn," Clara said calmly, entering the room. "We found the room you described, but there was no one there." No, Evelyn whispered, shaking her head. "She was there when I left. He said she was sick, that she wouldn't last long. But I heard her. I heard her crying." "Who is she?" Clara pressed. "What's her name?" "I don't know. He never told me. He just called her the quiet one. Said she was a lesson, a mistake he needed to fix." A nurse entered then, gently ushering Clara out. That night, Clara returned to the station and pulled every missing persons report from the last 20 years. She started with women Evelyn's age, then widened the scope. Patterns, similar disappearances. One in particular caught her attention. A woman named Marla Jennings vanished from a town 30 miles away just 9 months after Evelyn. A quiet waitress. No family. No trace. The resemblance to Evelyn was striking. Meanwhile, inside his holding cell, Thomas Hart sat motionless, staring at the floor. He hadn't asked for food. He hadn't asked for a lawyer. When Clara entered, he looked up for the first time in hours. "You found a room, didn't you?" he said calmly. Clara folded her arms. "I did. Did you find her?" "No, but Evelyn remembers another woman. She says you kept someone else down there. Thomas chuckled, low and bitter. Memories are tricky things, detective, especially when shaped by trauma. Evelyn was unstable. That's why she left. Funny, she says you buried her. She buried herself. In lies. In her guilt. Don't you see? I tried to help her, but she wouldn't stop. Stop what? He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. Stop painting them. Clara blinked. Painting who? The women. The ones who came before. Suddenly, everything inside her turned cold. Later that week, while examining Thomas's workshop behind the cottage, Nolan stumbled upon a false panel beneath the workbench. Inside were old sketchbooks, filled with drawings of women. Dozens of them. Some clearly Evelyn, others not. One of the drawings was dated only months after Evelyn disappeared. The face looked familiar. Clara dug into the archives again and confirmed it. Marla Jennings. And in a separate sketchbook, a new drawing. A woman with long dark hair. Pale skin. A scar under her eye. She's not from any of the missing persons reports, Nolan said. Not yet, Clara whispered. The next day, Evelyn sat up in her hospital bed, lucid, her voice stronger. He watched us, she said. Every day. Through the mirror. He would bring food. Water. But if we spoke to each other, he'd punish us. One time, he turned off the lights for 3 days. Marla, she started hearing voices. Then one day, she just stopped talking. And then, Clara asked. He told me she died, but I don't believe him. Why not? Evelyn looked straight into Clara's eyes. Because the night I escaped, I saw her. She was alive. She was trying to hide. That evening, a call came in from a retired groundskeeper who once worked for Thomas. I heard about Evelyn, the old man said, but you ought to check the lake house. The one he never registered. Out near Miller's Hollow. He used to go there once a month. Said it was his place to think. Clara's fingers tightened around the phone. Where is it exactly? The man gave her directions. And then he added, I don't know what he was doing out there, but I once saw a woman staring out the attic window, pale as a ghost, just standing there, not moving, and then she was gone. The dirt road to Miller's Hollow was nearly swallowed by pine trees, the headlights of Detective Clara Monroe's cruiser slicing through the dense darkness like a blade. Beside her, Officer Nolan studied the map with a flashlight, though they were already deep into territory few residents ever wandered. The lake house was not listed in any official registry under Thomas Hart's name. No utilities, no taxes, just a deed in the name of a defunct shell company. Thomas's signature on the founding documents. By the time they reached the property, the moon hung low and thick clouds threatened rain. The house itself loomed above the lake like a mausoleum, tall, narrow, and silent, its windows like blackened eyes. Clara and Nolan approached carefully, weapons drawn. The front door creaked open under Clara's hand. Inside, the air was musty, but recently disturbed. Muddy footprints marred the floor, too small to be Thomas's. Someone had been here, possibly still was. They moved through the house slowly. Each room was sparsely furnished, the walls lined with faded photographs. Most were of the woods, the lake, but some were portraits of women, their eyes hollow, their postures unnatural. In the attic, Clara found it, a locked door. Nolan forced it open with a crowbar. The room inside was dark except for a single chair facing the window. The room had a small cot, a bucket, and worn books stacked neatly, but no sign of recent use until Clara lifted the sheets. They were warm. She's here, Clara whispered, or was. Then they heard it, a door slamming downstairs. Footsteps. Clara and Nolan bolted from the attic, weapons up. They followed the sound through the kitchen and into the basement. There, crouched in a corner, was a woman. She was thin and emaciated. Long black hair fell in tangled strands across her face. She blinked into the flashlight beam, frozen. Miss, we're with the police, Clara said gently. We're here to help. The woman began to weep, silent, shaking sobs. She tried to speak, but her voice came out a hoarse whisper. My name is Marla. Clara's heart clenched. They rushed Marla Jennings to the hospital under a security escort. She hadn't spoken to another human being in nearly a decade. Her voice was ragged, her limbs stiff, but her mind, her memories, remained horrifyingly intact. She confirmed Evelyn's story. The basement prison, the punishments, the mirror, but she added something new. There was a third one, she rasped. A third woman? Clara asked. Marla nodded slowly. Her name was Cora. Cora who? I don't know. I never saw her. Only heard her cry. He said she was from before. From another place. Clara's stomach turned. What happened to her? Marla's lips trembled. One night, she stopped crying. Clara stayed with her for over an hour, gently questioning, coaxing out details. Marla said Thomas would leave for weeks at a time, then return with art supplies, canned food, and rage. He hated Evelyn most, she whispered, because she reminded him of someone, a woman who betrayed him. I think that's why he took her. That night, Clara visited Evelyn in her hospital room. She told her about Marla. She's alive. Evelyn gasped. Her hands flew to her face. I thought I imagined her. That maybe I made her up. No, she's real. She survived. Because of you. Evelyn wept openly, but her expression changed. Something else was surfacing. There's something I didn't tell you, she said. Clara leaned in. Go on. There's a place in the woods. Thomas called it the studio. He said it was where the truth lived. He took me there once, and I saw. She swallowed hard. I saw a grave. Clara and Nolan set out again before dawn. Following Evelyn's directions, they hiked deep into the forest bordering Miller's Hollow. The trees grew denser, older. No paths, no markers. Eventually, they reached a clearing. In the center was a small shack. The studio. Inside, the walls were covered in paintings. Portraits of women. Some looked like Evelyn. Others resembled Marla. But some were unfamiliar, new. Clara found a trapdoor beneath a rug. They opened it, descending into another cellar. This one smelled of oiled paint and decay. In the far corner, beneath a tarp, lay a wooden crate. Inside, bones. Human, wrapped in a faded cardigan. A necklace hung from the remains, silver, with a tiny locket. Inside the locket, Clara found a photograph of a young woman and a child. She would later identify the woman as Cora Fields. Reported missing in 2005. Thomas Hart had been killing long before Evelyn. That evening, back at the station, Clara stood in front of the evidence board. Evelyn, Marla, Cora, possibly more. Each face stared back at her, but one space remained blank. A sketch had been left on Thomas's desk in his cell. Not signed, not addressed, but clear in its message. A woman in her 30s. Brown hair, sharp eyes, dressed in a trench coat. It was Clara. Late that night, an officer at the hospital called Clara. Detective, Evelyn's gone. What do you mean gone? Clara snapped. She walked out of her room. Security caught her on camera, heading toward the east exit. Then nothing. She just vanished. Clara's breath caught in her throat. On Evelyn's hospital bed was a single sheet of paper. A new painting. It showed the lake house at Miller's Hollow. Burning. The search for Evelyn Hart began with urgency and dread. Detectives scour hospital footage, highway cams, and nearby woods. No trace. It was as if she had disappeared into mist. But Clara Monroe knew better. The painting left behind was no coincidence. The lake house, burning in vivid red and orange, was a message. At dawn, Clara and Nolan returned to Miller's Hollow. Smoke was already curling above the trees. By the time they arrived, the house was engulfed. Firefighters fought the blaze, but the structure collapsed in on itself. The basement, the attic, the hidden room gone. And in the ashes, a discovery. Not Evelyn, but another body. The remains were fresh. Male, early 40s. Dental records confirmed it. Thomas Hart. Escaped from custody 2 nights before. Slipped away during a transport transfer. No one noticed until it was too late. Clara felt the weight of it settle on her chest. Evelyn hadn't run. She had hunted him. The state launched an official investigation into the fire. Thomas Hart's escape, Evelyn's disappearance, and the deaths of Cora Fields and others triggered a media storm. Claire found herself buried in press conferences, federal briefings, and late-night interrogations. But none of it answered the question she feared most. Where was Evelyn now? 1 week later, an envelope arrived at Clara's desk. No return address. Inside, a photograph. A child standing beside a woman, Evelyn. They were in a coastal town, lighthouse in the distance. Evelyn's hair was dyed, but her face, her eyes, they were unmistakable. Scrawled on the back, "Don't look for me. Let the dead bury the dead." Clara sat with it for hours, turning the photo over, memorizing every detail. Nolan entered quietly. "She did it, didn't she?" Clara nodded. "She finished it. He took everything from her. She burned him to the ground." "You gonna report this?" Clara looked down. "No." Months passed. Marla Jennings testified before a grand jury. The studio cellar revealed more remains. 2 additional victims matched missing persons from nearby counties. Thomas Hart was officially ruled a serial predator, active for at least 15 years. A memorial was held for Cora Fields and the unnamed victims. Evelyn's name was included, though no one publicly confirmed her status. Privately, Clara kept a photo in her desk. Every so often, she'd receive another. A new location. Evelyn, smiling faintly. A subtle message. "I'm still here." But she never signed her name. 2 years later, the coastal town of La Ventana was quiet at dusk. The tide rolled in gently, brushing the rocks below the cliffs. A small bookstore sat between a bakery and a florist. Its sign read "Second Chances." Inside, a woman shelved new arrivals. Her hair was lighter now, her posture stronger. A child ran to her, clutching a seashell. "Mom, look what I found." She smiled and knelt. "That's beautiful, baby." Outside, a figure watched from across the street. Clara Monroe. She held the latest photograph Evelyn had sent. Same bookstore, same smile. Clara didn't cross the street. She didn't knock. She simply turned, walked back to her rental car, and drove away. Some ghosts, she'd learned, weren't meant to be exorcised. Some were finally free. In the end, the resurrection of Evelyn Hart is more than a harrowing tale of lies, captivity, and survival. It's a sobering reminder of how easily evil can wear a mask of normalcy. Thomas Hart was not a monster in the shadows. He was a husband, an artist, a neighbor. Let this be a warning. Trust must be earned, not assumed. We often overlook red flags, dismissing intuition for politeness or disbelief. But silence enables predators, and isolation is their greatest weapon. If something feels wrong, speak. If someone disappears, ask. Because every person who vanishes leaves behind a ripple, and sometimes that ripple is the only clue left. What did you learn from Evelyn and Marla's story? If this story moved you, hit the like button, drop a comment with your thoughts, and share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And don't forget to subscribe to The Twisted Guilts for more deeply researched, spine-chilling true crime stories you won't hear anywhere else. Tap the notification bell so you never miss the next case.